Everyone obsesses with Sam Altman's business advice. There's only one problem. His advice would bankrupt 99% of software SaaS businesses. I'm a software growth expert and I dedicated the last decade to figuring out how to best grow revenue and profit of a software company, not just hype. For one of my clients, I helped him grow his revenue last month from 22,000 euros to 76,000 euros in only 1 month. And Sam Altman's strategy, it only works for ideas that are 1 in a million. And no front, you're not having this kind of idea. So in the next few minutes, I will show you what makes his strategy so toxic and what to do instead.
Okay, today I'm going to talk about how to succeed with a startup.
Let's see how actionable the advice actually is for the average entrepreneur.
Obviously, more than can be said here in 20 minutes, but I will do the best I can. The most important thing, the number one lesson we try to teach startups is that the degree to which you're successful approximates the degree to which you build a product that is so good, people spontaneously tell their friends about it. Startups always ask us for the secret to success. They always want to believe it's something other than this because this is really hard to do. But this is it. If you can build a product that is so good, people spontaneously tell their friends about it, you have done 80% of the work that you need to be a really successful startup. If you think about the most successful companies you know, Google, Facebook, whatever, you probably found out about them because a friend of yours said, you got to try this, it's great. So this is the bar. Something that people love so much they tell their friends about it.
The thing here is the following. Good is a very broad term. What might be good for you is not good for me. So the first question I would ask myself here, good for whom? And that's where this advice is so toxic, so dangerous. Because if I build a product and I never ask myself for whom do I build the product, it's doomed to fail. And yes, if your product is this good that people tell other people about it, then it's really helpful. But out of statistics, we will not build the next Facebook, not the next OpenAI. But what we will build and what I recommend is building a really good B2B SaaS, for example, that solves a real world problem. And there I don't need people to tell other people. I need my ideal customer to tell another ideal customer that I solve the problem with my solution for him. So it's not about building a good product, but asking who needs a good product. So this is kind of, I don't understand why he puts this first. Maybe he has some good advice to back it up here.
One important indicator for a product like that is a product that's simple to explain and easy to understand. If you can't explain in a few words what you do, and if at least some people don't say, oh, that's pretty interesting, that's usually a mistake. It's usually a sign of unclear thinking or a need that is not big enough.
That's a very good point. I see that so much throughout the whole space. So it doesn't matter if the company is established yesterday or 40 years ago. All of the companies make this big mistake. That's why they are depending on referrals, because they're never able to really nail down what they actually do. And I would not recommend saying what you do, but I would rather recommend you put a phrase together that explains which kind of problems you solve and for whom. Let's say, for example, you help, the German came through here. You help engineering companies to reduce quotation effort by 30%. I know for whom, and I know exactly what you do with a business impact, not just innovation, not just digitalization. So that's super crucial. And also what he says here, at least a few people need to find it interesting. That's not enough. You're not going to build a product by some people saying it's interesting. The reaction you want to create is, oh wow, I need this, for the right ICP, ideal customer profile. And the ideal customer profile should have enough money, because interest in buying from an audience that has no money is worthless. So it's like raving fans, but they never go to your concert if you're a musician. So that's super crucial. But yes, here he is right. It should be really simple to explain what you do and what's the benefit if I buy your software.
Another thing that startups need to look for is a market that is either started to undergo or is soon going to undergo exponential growth. I think this is actually related to one of the biggest mistakes investors make.
I don't agree with this point, but let's see what his argumentation is about, and then I will tell you why this is really bad advice.
When evaluating startups, investors always say, well, what's your growth rate? We care about the growth rate. Investors will forgive smallish revenue today if it's growing quickly. For some reason, people don't think about markets this way. But if you think about the most important startups, they are the ones that I start in small markets that are growing very, very quickly. 11 years ago, the market for iPhone apps was $0. It's now huge. And I think if you only think about the TAM today.
TAM, just an explanation what that means, total addressable market. So what's the market you can service with your offer?
You'll make a big mistake. What you really want to do is identify a market that's going to grow every year and be able to ride that up elevator.
That's good advice for hyperscaler startups, but for the average startup, this is the most stupid advice. For example, in Germany, only 4% of software companies ever reached the 5 million revenue mark. What does this mean? We are not looking for the biggest market, the fast growing market. We are looking for a market that has enough companies of which we can solve a specific problem that is worth 4, 5, 6 figures to them. So let's assume you help a business to save 500,000. They will not tell you fuck off if you're going to, sorry for the term, if you're going to say this costs you 50 grand. So that would be a really good deal, a really good investment. So we are not looking for the next trend like AI. We are not looking for some misty unicorn that will tell us what is the next market. I'm looking at which kind of group of companies that have similar problems, have money, and are willing to invest to solve their business problems. That's how I, and with my clients, we are creating our own market. I'm not going to follow the AI trend if it doesn't make any sense. And he also mentioned the market of Apple apps, so phone apps, was not big. I'm not thinking about phone apps. I'm thinking about an app that solves a specific problem, because a solution that solves a specific problem, that saves a company money, there is always a market for that. Doesn't matter if we are still, if we don't have AI, if we are using C# or anything else. I don't care about technology. I care about, is the business problem I'm solving big enough? That's why I don't care about trends. I create my own. Because here, AI, I wouldn't say it's a fake trend. It's definitely a trend. But if you're going to add AI, you're playing in the same, let's say, same arena as everybody else. You're fighting for the prospect understanding that your AI solution is the best. I don't even play that game. I play the game of solving problems. And the one that solves problems that are big enough, that are expensive, that costs a lot of manual labor, there will be always a market. That's why I'm not concerned about AI taking my job, taking the job of my clients. I just don't care, because I play a different game.
A really important thing to figuring this out is learning how to differentiate between real trends and fake trends. A real trend is something that's actually going to happen, and a fake trend is not, or at least not yet. And before you make a big bet on a new platform, you want to make sure it's real. Now, there's an easy trick for this, which I'll share now. Real trends are ones where a new technology platform comes along and the early adopters use it obsessively and tell their friends how much they love it. A fake trend is one where people may buy the product, but don't use it, or at least not enough. So an example of a real trend, I already mentioned the iPhone, I'll mention that again. When the iPhone first came out, many people were dismissive because they only sold 1 million or 2 million that year. And they said, well, this just doesn't matter. But for the people that had an iPhone, they used it for hours every day. It became central to their lives. They loved it. They told their friends, you got to get one. And I think it was obvious then to people paying attention that something had fundamentally shifted. And we had a new computing platform that was going to spawn huge businesses. And it was a good time to bet on mobile apps.
This is obviously great advice after the iPhone had its success. So afterwards we always smarter. But back in the day, how are you going to number-based analyze a market if it has success or not? Sam won't have an answer to this, and that's the big problem. Spotting these trends, it's not like I'm super smart, I'm this startup founder. It's numbers. It's statistics, it's some research, some analysis, and that's why most startups and software companies fail, because they don't know the methodology on how to analyze the market if there is enough demand, and they're just assuming. They listen to Sam, it's like, oh my god, now it's the AI bubble, I need to jump on this. And I could be the same here. Oh, they're using it obsessively, and then I'm going to succeed. So this is not measurable. This is like snake oil approach. Like I cannot measure it. It's not, cannot touch it. It's like has no numbers. And that goes along with the explanation of before, that I go after problem solving. I don't care about the technology. What I like to say, if I'm giving my client 100 monkeys, they are sitting in the office and do the same job as the software, my client doesn't care. If he pays me the same, he's like, I don't care what you bring. If you bring me software, monkeys, or if you solve the problem yourself with AI, I just need the problem solved. And that's why I'm playing in a completely different league.
A fake trend, or at least a fake trend as of August 2018, I would say is VR. I do believe VR will be big someday, but today most people that I know that own a VR headset use it never or very rarely. And so although a lot of people talk about
the same here. In the beginning, it was a hype, and you could have said, yeah, they're using it heavily, let's follow it as well. It's like trading with stocks. All this technical analysis, it's like horoscope for man. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy. So not a big fan of this strategy here.
it, and maybe even a lot of people buy them. There's not the intense usage per user among the early adopters that I think you want to see before you make a big bet. Another thing that startups need, at least one evangelical founder, usually the CEO. Someone at the startup has got to be the person that is going to recruit, sell the product, talk to the press, raise money. And this requires some.
It's kind of funny that the difference between German software companies and the US startups, most companies in Germany that are 20, 30 years old, they never talk to the press. Nobody knows about them. So that's quite interesting that he mentioned this as a skill in the beginning.
Someone who can infect with enthusiasm the whole world about what the company is trying to do.
If we are honest, and if we're talking about software companies here, usually the founder is a tech guy. He's really enthusiastic about the technology, but not with other people. So you're like, thanks for the advice, Sam. I don't have that. What do I do? So let's continue.
And someone who becomes the chief evangelist for the company, it's very hard to succeed wildly without that. It's very hard to build a team at all without being able to do that.
Obviously, the most important thing is you as a leader, you need to believe in your vision, what you want to achieve. Otherwise, your team will not believe in it. Because how are they going to do your work? It's your work to believe in the product. And that's why I'm a big fan of this positioning approach, number-based. If I know that there is a total addressable market of 2,000 companies, we are going to, close 10% of it, and every project is worth 30,000 euros, let it be 4,000 euros, then I can calculate how much revenue we are going to make. But I also need to know the business impact. Because the biggest problem for technical founders is why they don't do any sales. They know how great they are with technology, but they don't know the business impact. And then they wonder why they don't like to do sales, why they don't like to do the positioning, the marketing. If you don't know what you actually change on your customer side, you're like operating and thinking like an imposter, even though you're doing great things. But it's super important to figure out how much money do you save them? How much time do you save them? What was possible for your client that would have been impossible without your software?
One thing that helps for this is having an ambitious vision. You never want to be grandiose, that turns people off, but you want to let yourself grow more ambitious over time. And as long as you do that organically, people will respond. Ambitious visions are exciting, they're fun to work on.
I have no idea what he meant by that. It's some startup bullshit in my opinion. Like, what does this even mean? You don't want to be too excited. I don't know. Let's continue.
In fact, I think in 2018, at least in Silicon Valley, it's easier to start a hard startup than it is to start an easy startup. Now, this sounds paradoxical, but ambitious projects are interesting. In the current environment, it may be relatively easy to raise capital, but it's really hard to do everything else. There's so many startups. It's so easy to start one. They all sound so...
For me, there are very few software ideas that need capital. If we are talking about delivery services, then I understand it. The winner takes it all. But if you're in B2B and you need venture capital, I'm not sure about your product. If it's this good, you should be able to make your business grow bootstrapped.
Promising that bringing together enough talent in one organization is really hard to do. And if you're working on a problem that may be modestly successful, it's kind of easy to get the first few people to join. You can give them a lot of equity. But then it gets really hard. Why is employee 20 going to join? Why does this matter to the world? Why should someone work on your startup versus any of the other things they could do? And picking something that matters if you're successful is a great way to do that. And so I think it's really important to think about when you're starting the company, how is this going to evolve into a vision that a lot of people want to help with, that a lot of people want to be associated with? Because I think getting talent and getting mind share is really hard in the current environment. And people are interested in startups that matter.
The thing is the following: you don't need to change the world like Facebook and Instagram. You can literally focus on one niche and be the best there, and people will follow. So I don't really understand this easy and hard startup thing. I don't know what he meant by that. And also, to be fair, this video was recorded 7 years ago, and he was talking about employee 20 and so on. For me, in today's day and age, especially with AI, you can build a company that's turning over many millions of dollars, of euros, and having just 10 employees maximum. For example, what I see oftentimes is like, we are looking for a marketing manager. Then I'm asking, how much revenue do you make? We are making 1, 2, 3 million euros, and they already have a marketing team. And I'm actively asking, what is your team doing? If you don't make 3, 5, 6, 7 million, you don't need a second person in marketing. If it is so, then your marketing is like super inefficient and you probably don't know what is actually effective. So this whole number thing, this whole ego circle jerking of we have so many employees, for me it's just a sign of inefficiency and not really knowing how to build a startup that's based on processes and optimization.
Another thing that we've noticed among our best founders again and again and again is that they have a confident and definite view of the future. They may be wrong, and so we say it's good to be confident and flexible, but this idea that you are confident and definite, this is what I think is going to happen, or this is what is going to happen. And being relatively sure of that, having courage of your convictions, being a clear leader, saying we're going to do this, and that's why, even in the face of a lot of doubt, that seems to really correlate with success.
That's a really good point. That's why many founders, especially technical ones, they are asking themselves, I'm so much smarter. Why do the more stupid founders have more success? Because they have more conviction. They are not overthinking. And that's why I'm a big fan of the positioning number-based, because I can really predict the future. If I'm focusing on solving a real-world problem where I know this kind of niche is wasting 50K per month, for example, if they don't use my service, from the conviction that comes from there will position you not only as a thought leader, but you will have ideas and solutions to problems your client doesn't even see. And that's the most important thing, that you're perceived as the growth partner and not just as a software company that delivers lines of code. And you will be perceived as the software company that delivers lines of codes if you're asking the client, oh, what do you want? I'm not sure about this. Do you want some customization? Yes, you should listen to your clients, but you should always question why they want to have something. Never implement straight away what they want to have, because they know what they want to have, but they never know what they actually need. And that's what you figure out by asking, by questioning, by doubting, by challenging your client. So this point I completely agree. Most important, even more important than technical skill, if I would have to choose.
And this comes back to having an ambitious vision, but the entire startup ecosystem is best set up to support companies that have a low chance of success, but are huge if they work. And I think going for something that is huge if it works will attract the best people.
For me, that's the biggest hope ever. Like low possibility of working, but if it works, it's like crazy big. It's like this meme. 60% out of times, it works 100% out of times. The big problem here, the coping, is most founders, most investors, they don't know how to validate a business idea, because you are not going to make the next Facebook. If you do, you're lucky, absolutely. Survival bias, it's not so easy like Amazon. There probably were 1,000 more Jeff Bezoses that didn't make it, of which we don't know the story because they didn't make it. So my goal is to find a niche where I can make a few million over the next few years instead of betting on $1 billion exit, because the chances are very little. Obviously, the press loves these kind of stories, but if you're true to yourself, you most likely want to be a founder, want to have some impact, but without neglecting the time with your family. And if we're going into the billions and these kind of things, you're going to neglect something at some point. So I'm taking the higher chances, make a few million, instead of playing the big game and trying to get this 1 billion unicorn company set up, which is 1 out of 1 million. So I don't know why he recommends this. For him, it obviously worked, and that's why we listen to him right now. But there are probably 10,000 other Sam Altmans that didn't make it. And also this point of, we're going to have a big market and we are growing crazy so people join. If you're really convinced as a founder that you're going to make a difference in that little niche, then that's as powerful as growing in a big niche. But if you just with a little ounce are questioning your worth because you're just addressing 3,000, 10,000 potential clients, your employees will feel it. They will feel it in the job interview. They will feel it when they work with you. And that's a real problem. Not that you will not be the next Facebook. And that's the big point. So also some startup bullshit. It's obviously cool. Hey, I'm working for Facebook. What do you do the whole day? Nothing.
I'm not going to talk too much about the team. There are a lot of obvious things I could say that have been said many times by many people about, you need smart people who want to work really hard and who communicate well. These are all really true. But I'd like to mention a few non-obvious things that we've noticed that we don't hear people say as much about the team you need to assemble. Vinod Khosla says that the team you build is the company you build, and I really think that's true. I've still met only a handful of founders, I think, that spend enough time on recruiting, like Mark Zuckerberg is famously one of them. But building a great team, I think, other than picking the right market and building a great product, is the most important thing you do. All founders go through a transition, all successful founders, where you switch from building a product to building a company, and building a company really is about the team. So you need...
I would agree on that. Even though I would say the processes are more important than the team. So I'm not looking for the team and then trying to find a position for them in my company. I'm defining the role, the position, and then I'm finding the perfect fit for that. So that's also an approach I can recommend, because many are like, let's hire somebody smart and look for the best position. No. I have strict processes where I'm going to find the right people, because my company is based on processes with the right people. It's not depending only on the person. And that's super, super important.
Optimists.
And also another addition, the team that you will build in the beginning might not be the team that you need to scale. Because when you scale, you need more people that do routine work. And in the beginning, you really need workhorses that work over hours, that are committed to the vision. That's also super important part, that there might be this switch after a few years if you grow with these tips.
The whole world will be telling you why you're going to fail as a startup. If you don't have that internal fire of belief, if you don't have people who say, you know what, we are going to do this, and it doesn't matter what the haters say. We're going to figure this out. And there is, this problem, it must be solvable. If you don't have the spirit of optimism on the team, it's very hard to succeed when the world continues to punch you in the face.
I would say don't hire pessimists, but you need to lead the way. You cannot rely on your team doing it. Because if shit hits the fan, they are looking up to you. What is my boss doing? So yes, hire optimists. If somebody's negative, don't hire them. But ultimately, you are the person everybody's looking for if shit hits the fan. And then it's good to have a solution. Because then they're like, oh, my boss is chill. Situation seems a bit shitty, but he has a solution. Okay, I'm going to follow.
You need at least some idea generators. There are a handful of people in any company that has gone on to be really successful that I've been able to work with, who are just really good at coming up with lots of ideas. You don't want too many of these people because that's more ideas than a company can follow through on. But having some people within a company that are just constantly throwing out new ideas, most of which will be bad, turns out to be super important to have on the team.
This has some nuances. If I have people with a lot of ideas, they can be all like stupid. So I would not hire them, or they're useless to the team. And if I have no positioning, you also need a lot of ideas. I don't need a lot of ideas. I need the best ideas that serve my client. And obviously, if I have a person in my team that helps me bounce back ideas, then that's something good. But I wouldn't say necessarily that you need 2-3 people of this kind of type. Because if I have a positioning, I know exactly who we are serving. I know exactly the system that allows me to figure out what the market needs, but he's not able to articulate yet. And in the end, ideas without execution, we all know this quote, it's worth nothing. So another startup quote we are going to dismiss today.
This spirit of we'll figure it out is my favorite thing to hear among early startup team members. A lot of things go wrong. The situations that startups win in tend to be incredibly dynamic. And so this idea that even if I'm not qualified on paper, even if I haven't solved this problem before, even if this problem feels like it's going to kill the company, which many problems will feel that way, this spirit among the team of, you know what, we've got the people we need, we're going to figure this out, we're going to get this done, that's super important.
That's actually the most important skill you can have. It comes also from the self-confidence point, because your team, they will always look what you're doing, like the point we mentioned before. And if you're struggling with this, just have a look what you have achieved so far. Until now, you had 100% success rate in solving problems. I wouldn't look necessarily into the future of all the things you still need to do. Have a look back. Where have you been 10 years ago? Write down the projects you already did, at which age you did them, and have a look of how far you came. And there you will realize that you have a track record of tackling every situation that came. And this is super important, because you will not have the answer to everything. That's impossible. But you can have the attitude of, I don't know, but I will figure it out. Doesn't matter what it takes.
Another thing that I love to hear from early team members is, I've got it. So, you hear in big companies a lot, people say, that's not my department, someone else is going to do that. Or, ooh, this is really bad, this is going to hurt us. And you want people who just step up and say, I'll do it. I've got it. Don't worry about it.
That's a good point. Especially in the beginning, you want to have these kind of people. But if you're an established business and this happens, your processes are probably shit. Sorry for telling you this, but if there are more exceptions than rules, more than processes, it's not agile, it's chaos. So that's what you need to address. So don't be like, oh, we are the next startup, we are flexible. No, it's just chaos.
You want people that have a bias towards action. Startups, especially in their early days, often win by moving very quickly. You never get as much data as you'd like. You never have as much time to deliberate as you'd like. And you want people who are willing to act with much less data than they like to have, with much less certainty. And then if they act and it doesn't work, they adapt really quickly and try something else.
That's a good point. Money loves speed, And if you're already established business and have a team that doesn't implement right away, they most likely don't know the value of implementing right away. So I would explain to them what happens if they are acting slow. Not as you did something wrong, act faster, but you know why I act fast? I will tell you. And then just make them realize why moving fast makes sense. Super simple. It might seem stupid, but you will realize that your team is like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you so much.
We talk also about the blessing of inexperience. We have seen many of our startups do incredible things because no one told them it was hard, or no one told them they can't do it. There's a great quote from Steve Wozniak about how all the best things he ever did came from having no experience whatsoever and having no money. And, you know, that obviously is not always true, but there is a magic thing that happens with startups, especially in their early days, before they've learned they're not supposed to be able to do certain things. And so I think as a startup, again, it doesn't work to have everybody be inexperienced, but you can take more bets than you normally would on inexperienced but super high potential people.
That's a good one. If the attitude is right, let's do it. Let's fix this problem. I don't know why, but I will figure out. That's way more important than experience, because we all started at zero. We started with the right attitude, and so I would hire more for attitude than skill, actually. But that's a common management thing. That's not something new that I invented.
That's the end of the topic on team. One of the most important jobs you have as a founder is to never lose momentum. And this is a little bit depressing because it means for the first few years you never get to take your foot off the gas. You never get to really rest. We try to be honest about this, that startups are not the best choice for work-life balance at all, but especially in the early days. Startups survive on their own momentum. If you have momentum, people keep delivering results beyond what they think they're capable of. If you lose momentum, it's very difficult to get it back. And so continuing to make sure that the startup has a cadence, that the startup keeps winning on a relatively short and predictable intervals, this is really important, and it's up to the founders to make sure that you don't lose a hold of this.
That's a good point. It's definitely not going to be zero work, but it should not also go into extremes, like destroying your relationships, neglecting your family, these kind of things. Balance is possible if you allow it to be possible. Because many are like, oh, I'm a founder, I need to hustle. I also made this mistake. Now I'm like, I can do both. If I manage my time, if I manage my focus, if I understand that both is important, and all about this delayed gratification, some reach a point where they delayed the gratification so much that they cannot enjoy it anymore. So keep this in mind, that you don't end as a victim of the hustle mentality. But also don't work too little. Like, if you're really into it and have a nice positioning, you will feel the motivation within you.
Another thing that we think startups need is a competitive advantage over time. Now, this is something that sounds so obvious, I hesitated to even put it in. This is well discussed, but we're seeing more and more startups apply to YC, and when we ask them, so what is the long-term monopoly effect here? What is the long-term competitive advantage? What is, where is the network effect in this business? They look at us like it's the first time they've ever heard this question. All of the really great businesses I know have an answer to this question. And in fact, the better they are, the more they pretend not to. But this is something that you want to have a plan for.
That's obviously great advice, but he just has 20 minutes, to be fair, so he cannot elaborate. But the competitive advantage is not as important as the positioning. If I'm finding a problem that really needs solving, just by being able to mention that I'm not just delivering the software, but I'm delivering the transformation for your business, you're better than 99% of businesses. You can just look for similar companies like you. They communicate really vaguely. We do custom development. We have you as our customer in focus. We are an interdisciplinary team. We have these experience. Super marketing, blah, blah, blah-ish. So the competitive advantage can be important in saturated markets, but you can avoid even being compared by finding the right niche, by being really specific. by being the first one that translates code into a business benefit. This code saves me 15K per month. So yes, this has some validity, but for most businesses, it's not important.
Another thing you want to have a plan for is at least a sensible business model. You don't have to have it all figured out at the beginning, but when we ask founders, so how are you ever going to make money? And they look at us like it's the first time they've ever been asked that question, which happens more often than you would think recently. That's a bad sign too.
That's the most disturbing thing ever to me. How you can start a business and not think about the money. That's the most important thing. Because money for me is a measure of how much value do I provide. If I don't provide any value, then the business is not going to work. As simple as that. So I also see those passion projects like an app for work cafes. Oh, what's the business strategy? I didn't think about that. Well then, stop your business. It should be about the money. Money will help you build a better product, help even more clients. But some SaaS businesses, I feel like they just want to waste money, work on technical things, and then figure out whom to sell to. I can guarantee you that will be a failure.
Again, this one is so common that I hesitate to put it in here. But when we ask a startup how they're going to grow, how they're going to get users, and they look at us like it's the first time they've ever heard that question.
That's really funny, to be honest. That's like the second step. Positioning, who is your ideal client, and how are we going to reach them?
Bad sign. So some sensible idea to try here first.
Also, some sensible idea is not enough. It needs to be really concrete. I'm getting the leads from this platform, the email and the phone number, plus the name of the CEO. I'm going to call them with this phone number. This is my script. This is what I'm saying in the beginning. This in the middle. Then I'm doing this. So this needs to be hyper specific. And this is also a question I like to ask. If somebody's like, yeah, we're doing this and that, and I already know they have no system, which is not a problem. But the problem is if you keep on maintaining this vagueness, that's the real problem.
Paul Buchheit once spent a bunch of time looking, one of the YC partners, spent a bunch of time looking at the traits of our best founders and tried to distill down what they were. And he came up with frugality, focus, obsession, and love. I think that is really good. I don't have much to add. But I think these are things that you should be able to say.
This is the same thing when startup founders present a product, nobody understands it, and it's like, I don't have anything to add. It's so great. So I'm curious if he now elaborates, because you can interpret it in 1 million ways.
About what you're doing and you as a founder.
Good job, Sam.
And finally, I want to talk about why startups get to beat big companies. There are lots of reasons. I'm going to talk about a few common ones here. I think these trends are valuable enough that as you evaluate startup ideas you might do, it's worth thinking about if you fit into these. Because it's really hard for startups to beat big companies most of the time.
The question really is, do you need to become a big company? I don't know where this trend comes from. Maybe it's an ego thing, maybe it's a Silicon Valley thing, maybe it's the idea about exiting the whole thing. Why don't you start a company that you really like, that you don't need to exit, that you don't need to optimize for shareholder value, where you simply optimize for it supports your lifestyle, it makes money, it gives space for employees to work, it gives a benefit to the economy, some specific company. I really don't understand this whole startup culture. Obviously, it's quick money, but as a main business, I don't know. We don't make any revenue, but we are valued 5 million. Nice. I'm really questioning if you're a real entrepreneur.
And here are some areas where we see it happening repeatedly. So I think one difference is if you are a product manager at a big company and you want to do something that sounds like a bad idea but is a good idea, you have to get everybody from your boss, sometimes all the way up to the CEO, to say yes. So one no can kill you. If you're a startup, you can go to YC Demo Day. Any number of the thousands of investors can say yes, and you get to have a crack at it. So it's a very different mindset. And for those ideas that sound bad but are good, because of this phenomenon, this one no versus one yes, startups can win. In fact, startups usually do beat big companies in that category of ideas.
This makes no sense because most people, they don't have good ideas. And also good and bad, what's that? It's not, something completely different for you, for me.
So look for ideas that sound bad but are good, and where you are much more likely.
Drink a lot of beer on the weekend. Sounds good, but it's bad. I don't know. Doesn't sound good is good. Makes no sense.
To get one yes than someone at a big company is to get all yeses. Another area where startups usually beat big companies are in very fast changing markets. Startups' great advantage is in agility and speed. The more a market is changing, the higher the number of decisions you get to make, and the higher number of tweaks to your product and your strategy you get to make. And you want to optimize the number of those decisions that someone has to make to compete with you, because a big company will make them on average worse and certainly much slower than you do.
That's a really good point. You have no idea how slow big companies are yet. Like, you don't even need to outwork them. You can just have a normal day and do what they do in one day, and them it takes 1 week or even 1 month. Like, I can remember back in the days as a project manager, I had to get access to a system of a company with 10, 15,000 employees. It took them 1 month to get some simple IT stuff to give me access. So here, the biggest advantage ever. So if there is already competition, I don't even care about competition because I know most, they don't have zero clue. The bigger they are, the less clue they have. They were just at the right time, at the right spot. They're a bit too big to fail. They were early enough there. So don't be discouraged. Like, competition, I'm not even using this word. It's so irrelevant.
So the speed of market evolution gives you a lot.
Except if you try to build the exact same product as already somebody built, then you're doomed to fail.
More chances to compound your advantage over a big company. And then finally, startups usually win on big platform shifts. Many people have observed that startups come in these clusters. Those clusters usually come after a big platform shift. We'll stick with the iPhone example here. After mobile apps became a thing, many new companies got started that are now quite valuable. And one of the reasons here is
also they're super hard to catch the trend. And it was not about the trend. Obviously, on this platform, there was more possible. But I'm not going to come up with a Facebook idea just because Apple is developing the new iPhone. That's such a big stretch, almost impossible to catch this chance in the market. So we better stick with B2B software offers.
Most large companies work on sort of an annual cadence at least. And when there's a huge platform shift, they are not good at making a big enough strategic pivot. The battleship just turned.
Like, for example, AI. I ignored the thing 1.5 years, and now I'm still leading with the approaches we have, because I was like, it's a big hype. Let the market settle and then we can adopt it. So why? Because I know how the market works. I know how the real value gets created. That makes me super relaxed, even though such disruptive technology is thrown on the market.
Turns too slowly. Whereas a startup can say, wow, woke up this morning, the world is fundamentally different than it was 6 months ago. We're going to go all in on this new direction.
If you're new as a startup, this kind of impulse is going to be the most stupid idea you ever had in your life. Because how many founders are flip-flopping around? Like, yesterday have this offer, then it's the AI offer, before it was the blockchain offer, before it was, offer, Web 3.0. So just use the number-based approach. So you don't need to follow these kind of trends. Make your own trends.
And so that's a way that startups usually win. Or that's an area where startups usually win. There are many others, but thinking about these three, I think, is directionally a good thing to do. All right. That's all I've got for today. Jeff, thank you very much for having me and for the class.
If you watched the video until the end, chances are high this topic is of high relevancy. You're either a CEO of a SaaS company or maybe an employee. So if you want to know how I scale my clients, the revenue and the profit, but not the headcount, shoot me a message on Instagram and I will send you my free PDF, How to Grow Software SaaS Businesses in 2026.